I think that's it.
Well, I didn't understand that I can do it. The person doesn't love instruction here, but.
I'll just go.
Well, that's just very. I'm just kidding.
So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to fall. It is no longer summer. We feel it in the air, we see it in the trees. So, I'm glad we have a good attendance. That was one of the big things we were concerned the most about, is having an opportunity to have this meeting and another one tomorrow and make sure that people were going to be able to come out. We, as a council, as mayor and council, take 100% responsibility for doing a horrible job in putting this out there when we did it this spring. We didn't bother telling anybody about it. We just said, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and we just put it out there. Because we've been working on it for years. So we just thought, oh, we know all about the social media. And it was like, everybody went, what? So, back to the drawing boards. Special levies are, more than 50 communities have introduced them in this year, 2018, in the province of Manitoba, for all kinds of different reasons. For infrastructure, for moving things around, building reserve accounts, all kinds of different reasons. But there's over 50 of them. The rural municipality, I don't mean to point to Jim, but you're a councillor with the RN, so I just want to point out that they have special levies. The city of Flin Flon, who now has less than 5,000 residents in the city, so now their policing costs are provincial costs and not a federal cost. They have special levies as well. And they're all around the $600 range. We looked at other communities down south and other ways, and so that's the area where we thought was probably a pretty good idea to go there. So, first of all, I just want to lay some groundwork. This is a unofficial meeting. This is a meeting for education. This is a meeting to understand and to learn. It's not a meeting for thumbs up or thumbs down. There's no voting going to be taking place. No voting in the near future will be taking place. We're going to have this meeting today. We're going to have the same meeting tomorrow. Probably a little bit shorter meeting because it's going to be over the noon hour, so we'll all have to get here to get out for work and whatnot. We will, at that point, depending on what your reactions are, and what your thoughts are, what your suggestions are, we will likely at some point then call for a public hearing. And then it becomes more official. After the public hearing, if there is support, but we feel that there will be support, then it'll go into, it'll be introduced as a resolution that council will have 3 readings, that we have to have a bylaw. And so that is going to take us, if we move quickly on this, this is going to take us probably into the new year. So what we're talking about here is what our plan is, what we would like to do as a council for 2019. Might be a little bold of us, because there's an election in October. So maybe different people on the table, they may not like the idea, may have more support for it. We don't know. So we wanted to have a meeting tonight to talk to you about what this levy is, why we're doing it, what is the reasoning behind it. Is it going to cost me $600 more a year? And if so, why so? So I want to hopefully touch on a few of the reasons why, and then allow other councillors to have a few words if they so choose, and then let you ask questions as well. We have a system here, Crystal has on her computer, that you can tell her what your taxes were, and we'll be able to put it into the computer and tell you what they're going to be. Give or take, right? Because we haven't set the number yet for 20 minutes. So, but I'll give you a good estimate. So one of the reasons why we're looking at special levies is because this community needs to grow. If you don't grow, you shrivel and you die. And you become just another old small town that went away. So we need to grow. We need to do all kinds of things. We need to create jobs. We need to create industry. I couldn't help but notice today that Canada Goose announced that they're building their 3rd plant in Winnipeg. Their 3rd plant in Winnipeg. And they're going to employ 700 people at this new plant. Now, I'm not saying that we would have a plant that big here, 128,000 square feet, I think it is, with 700 people, but maybe they could have had something different. And shortly after the last election, I, along with a few other people, went to Toronto and met with Canada Goose and their Mighty Moose. And we weren't successful in our quest to get them to locate here. They still have not put it aside, but you know, they told us that we did it right. We just simply, we did it right. So that was a very reassuring thing, that we can go to Toronto, OCN and the RM and the town of Law, along with community development and economic development, and say, hey, we can accommodate you. We know how to do this. And so that's reassuring. So, but we didn't get that. So we have to grow. And we have been faced with a number of unbelievable issues. I mean, if someone had said in 2015 that Tolko was going to say, hey, we got to go, all the best. Oh, and by the way, we've looked for an owner, and none exist. We'll be as good of pals as we can. And if we had just accepted that, what a mess we would have been. What a mess we would have been in. So we didn't accept that. We moved forward. We worked with all kinds of different people to make sure that that didn't happen. And so now we have a company that some say are here for 3 months or 3 years, probably no more than that. And most people are saying, what a blessing, because we have such growth going on out there. They're currently building a 5 to 10 year plan. They will tell you that this turnaround at this operation of American Industrial Acquisition Corporation is one of the most successful they've ever had. So we need to grow. They're going to employ a number of people, high-end folks, you know, those that have master's degrees and all kinds of things, and so they need housing, and that's what this is about. That's what this levy is about. This is about an opportunity to be able to expand the number of houses we have. Because if people can't find a place to live, they're not going to move here. And so that's what this is about. We take our one cost that we have, our policing cost, that we really have no control over. We get a bill from the government of Canada, and we have to pay it. We know it's in around the 2.1, going up to 2.4, on its way to 2.8 million. We know that cost is continuing to rise. And so we can take a cost like that we really have no control over, and spread it out. So that we all work towards an opportunity to be able to build more homes in our community. We, this year, we sold 31 residential lots. And people said, you shouldn't have sold them for so cheap. And I say to that, where's the lineup of buyers? Where was the lineup of buyers? They weren't there. But at $1,000, they'll take a chance. I took a drive on Sunday out to the lake. 20 lots are being cleared as we speak. 20 lots. That's growth. So if we can have growth in our residential areas, make it more affordable, then more people are going to come here. That'll make our community more attractive, and that'll make business look at our community to say, hey, that's the kind of place that we can work with. And we're in a great opportunity. We're in a wonderful position to do this growth, because Thompson is just, it's sad. It's sad what's going on in Thompson. Every fourth house is for sale. Everybody wants out. They'll turn things around, but the Thompson that was, it won't be that way for many, many years to come. Flin Flon now has less than 5,000 people living in their community. How did that happen? How did that happen? They haven't moved. They've only moved out of the community. You can go and build a place out at the RM, just 2 miles out of town, save yourself a bunch of money on taxes. Still use all the town services, but don't. And so we're the ones that live in this community. We're the ones that are going to have to look after it. We're the ones that are going to have to make it grow. So that's why we're looking at this levy. Attract new residents to our community and attract business to our community. And at some point, we have to say, we're the ones that are going to do it. Can't say, well, I'm not doing this. Someone else has to do this. I don't like that idea, and walk out the door. If you don't like the idea, that's great. I'm all for that. Just tell me what you would do. What's the other way? What's the other way of doing this? At a $600 special levy, which is the same that's being charged in the RM, which is the same that's being charged in the city of Flin Flon, which is the same that's being charged in the city of Thompson, does not mean any new revenue for the town. Your taxes aren't, everybody's taxes aren't going up by $600. Those that sit on vacant property, those that have homes that are derelict, they're falling apart. The windows aren't even there, they haven't mowed the lawn in 10 years. Those people are going to pay. And if you don't pay, then you lose your property. So I think they will pay, and they'll pay for a couple of years, and then they're going to say, look, I either have to build something on here, or I have to get rid of this property, because I'm not paying $600 a year for a vacant piece of property. So that's the thinking behind it. The other thinking behind it is the guy or the business that has, maybe they got 10 people employed, maybe they got 50 people employed, maybe they got more than that. They're going to see theirs come down. That $600 levy will affect them the most on that. It'll come lower for them. They're supporting our communities. They're doing everything they can. It'll give an opportunity for people to come here and say, yeah, I see how that works for them. How can I make it work for me? Because we have to grow our community. We just simply have to grow. I've been fighting this battle for a decade. And sitting around and doing nothing hasn't worked. And so that's our plan. That's why we're going the direction we're heading in. I would like you to, if you're concerned about what it's going to do to your taxes, how much is it going to cost me, we're prepared to help you on that line tonight. Tell you exactly what that number might be and why that number is where it is. I think generally speaking, we'll find, for the most part, a little low, a little high, not a huge. No, you know, again, it's the derelict and the vacants that are going to see their taxes go up $600. It's going to see the bigger companies that are employing all the people, keeping people in our communities, going to see theirs drop. It'll be spread evenly up because we have no control over the cost, and it's the most fair and proper thing to do. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, if other members of council would like to say anything, that would be perfect. And then I would really like to hear from all of you.
I don't have anything to add. I'm here to hear what the people have to say and what your concerns are, so we can take that information forward.
Well, what happens to this? Is going to happen to this craft paper exemption, tax exemption?
I'm sorry, Scott Paper?
Craft paper.
Oh, craft paper.
Yeah, what's going to happen to their tax?
So we are 2/3 the way through.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got one more bill next year. Okay? The amount that they pay is going to drop for sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you to keep the employee here down, but I just wonder how long it's going to last. Huh?
Well, they're anxious for that deal to come to an end too. You look around and see the things that Canadian Craft Paper has done just in the last year in terms of community involvement. It's more than ever Toco ever thought of doing. So they're not going anywhere. They're here to stay. And we're really lucky to have that.
And the grant that we give to Canadian Craft Paper every year doesn't come out of taxes.
Yeah.
It comes out of a reserve fund that comes from Hydro, the Bipole 3 money. So that grant that goes to them every year doesn't have an impact on what the taxpayers pay. It doesn't, you know, it's not on your tax bill, right? It's something that comes from a reserve fund.
But in a sense, it still comes out of the money that the town has to do other projects with, right?
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Or entice other businesses to come to the town and start up.
Right.
So that you employ more people instead of just the people that are already employed.
No, but in 2016, when they
Yes.
you know, there were four pillars, right? There was the environmental, there was the pension, there was
10% reduction in wages.
the 10% deduction in wages, and the issue with the town. And if all those four came together, then we had ourselves a deal. I, as your mayor, was not prepared to be a one-pillar out and the deal closed. And 330 jobs are gone, and no thank you, not interested. It was the best decision I think this council's ever made.
I do have a question for you. You were talking about the tax rates, and some buildings will go up and some buildings will go down. And essentially the ones that are multi-units, hotels, apartment buildings, revenue property is what I call them, because at the end of the day, they are making money off of those rooms. Their tax will go down with the $600 levy by a slight amount or a large amount, I don't know. But you have the individual homeowners that have lived in their house for the past 50 years, and you may call it in bad shape because they can't afford anymore, they can't afford to put new windows in, they can't afford to look after their yard the way you would like to see fit. So now you will raise their amount by $600, so instead of paying, we'll say, I don't know if there's anybody this low in town, but we'll say $1,000 a year for taxes. Now all of a sudden they're going to go up in order for that revenue property to go down.
So nobody's taxes will go up by $600?
I
Because
didn't
you
say
already
by 600,
paid.
I just said go up.
They will go up.
But
and it
that
depends on-
person is on a fixed income, they're on social assistance or they're on a pension plan, and now they can't go to the government and say, well, you know what, my taxes just went up $200 a month, but the apartment block at the end that has 63 units in it went down so much a month, I have to be able to pay this, will you reimburse me or raise my pension up by $200 a month? So that I can afford the taxes at the end of the year.
It won't be $200 a month. Like I said,
No, I'm
nobody's
just-
taxes will go up $600. So if people are curious, again, what that's going to do to your tax bill, you can for sure give me the amount that was on your 2018 assessment. I can plug it into the calculator that Graham's come up with, and it will give you a pretty good ballpark of how that's going to change your taxes. And the break-even number, if you will, is about $207,000. So if your house or your property are assessed at $207,000, then you will see zero change. If your house is assessed at, say, $100,000, you're looking at about $300 a year that your taxes would go up.
I think what Larry's referring to is when you're starting to talk to commercial businesses, that's fine, you're talking to commercial businesses. But when you're talking about apartment buildings and housing, I can guarantee those apartment building owners and housing owners are not going to be able that tax rate for their tenants. Whereas they have the ability that if they were going to continue to have their taxes rising, that would be passed on to their tenants. Whereas our low-income home owners have to work out the money somehow. When they can't.
The other important point here, just if I could, the other important point here is that if we don't change the way we do our taxes, we're one of the highest taxed communities in the province. So if we don't do something to fix that, to make our community more attractive, then you can have your 60-unit apartment buildings, but it'll be the only one because no one's ever going to build another one. They simply can't afford the taxes. They simply cannot afford the taxes. And if we're going to attract people, if you and you and you and you and you and you and you are committed to living in the Paul Manitoba, then we need to roll up our sleeves and go to work. We have to do it as a community.
Jim, yes, they can.
I'm sorry?
The housing owners, that's a different category, and yes, they can afford the taxes on these buildings.
I'm not sure I'm hearing you clearly.
The dwelling owners?
Yes.
The multi-unit dwelling
Yes.
owners, the more units they have, yes, they can afford the property.
They just tax, so they go home.
No, I'm not saying they can't. What I'm saying is that it will give the ability to attract other property owners to build apartment buildings. You know, just because there's 3 apartment building owners in town doesn't mean we're maxed out on apartment building owners, right?
No, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. I know.
Yeah, I know you
And I
are.
know they can't afford it.
That's why I was
I
trying
know
to
they
get...
don't need the tax.
And also, what about the people that built this town? Like, they're elderly now, and they live in a house that's under the $100,000 or $150,000 market, a lot of them. Now, all of a sudden, their price is gonna go up by $600 a year. They don't have it.
No,
They don't have revenue coming in from their private homes to cover that.
But that's,
raise.
it's not going up 6 cents.
Right.
If
If
it's a
your
vacant lot,
house is over $200,000 or $207,000 assessed value per year, your taxes won't go up, it won't change much. I'm talking about the house that's only assessed at $100,000
Okay,
or
let's-
$80,000 a year.
$100,000.
It's $310 a year.
That's not $600.
There you go.
Still going up.
Yes, ma'am.
Pension, you don't, $300 is a big hole in your pocket, I'll tell you that, when you're living on pension.
I do. I absolutely, completely, fully understand that, and I'm clear as possible on that. I just don't know what else to do.
Why are you trying to hurt lower income people?
I'm not trying to hurt lower income people. I'm trying to grow.
Pensioners. Why are you trying to drag them through the
I don't
mud?
want to have arguments. I want to learn from you. Tell us.
This to me is.
Yeah, the right fellow, put the ball count.
I was just wondering what's changed, like the presentation you're making now. I was at the meeting for the first one, and it seems very similar. It's just the amount everyone's paying is less. Like, I'm not sure what the difference is this time around as compared to the first time.
This time around, correct me if I'm wrong, but schools are exempt, churches are exempt. The amount is lower.
The amount you're collecting altogether?
Yeah, so we're going to take, and again, Graham, you're probably better to explain this, but what we're going to do is we're going to take policing costs out of the general revenue.
Yeah, I understand all
okay,
that.
Good.
But I'm just wondering, like, you're saying schools and churches and all that are exempt now.
Correct.
Which is fine, but, so that lowers the amount of revenue that this will bring in? And then you're just distributing it amongst the smaller group of people?
So the other levy that was proposed was a $900 per parcel levy, so that changed the balance of things, right? So if you were on the lower end of the housing assessment, you would see a greater increase to your taxes at the end of the year, and if you were on the higher end, you would see a greater decrease.
Yeah.
So we picked we picked the $600 mark, if you will, to kind of try to close that gap a little bit, because we heard loud and clear that that was too much. We heard that, you know, people felt that churches should be exempt from having to pay, as well as the school, because the school gets their revenue from the same tax base, right? So we would essentially didn't want to come across as double dipping. So that's one of the changes that was made. And then we also just tried to be a little bit more proactive in our communication, and as opposed to holding a public hearing saying this is what we are going to do, we wanted to say, you know, this is what we're thinking of doing, and get some feedback and stuff before we brought anything forward.
So the question that I would pose, is this 100% of the policing budget, or
No.
is it a portion of the policing?
It's a portion.
It's about 60%. It's about 60% of the policing budget.
Jim Lemon.
If I could ask, it says in here that by putting this levy on, you're going to increase or have an unused property or undeveloped property developed. How is this going to develop property?
Well, because I think if you're sitting on vacant property, you're paying currently about $100 a year for property taxes, and that goes up by $600. You're either going to unload that property and let someone build on it, or you're going to build. You're not going to keep paying $700 a year.
I just understood when you were speaking with Larry that the lower assessed property has a lower levy. So you're not going to be a $600 levy, will it?
No, flip that.
Flip that,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So then, as an example, the property that used to be the hotel uptown, that big vacant lot,
Yeah.
how will that be developed?
Well,
Who will develop that and why?
okay, so that, you know, I mean, that property, as I understand, is for sale. Okay, and so the more that we do to let people know, to let the world know that we're changing our way of doing taxes, the more traction, large parcels of property will come our
So
way.
then, as an example, what is that property currently assessed at, and what are the taxes being paid on it?
Well, it's vacant land right now, so it's not very. We lost millions of dollars in assessed value in 2017.
Can you tell me what the current assessment is on it?
Pardon me? If I had an address, I could probably figure it out.
Look at it back if you want. I don't have it on me.
I don't know the street address.
The address?
I don't know, it's on Edwards Avenue, 200 block of Edwards.
227 Edwards.
Pardon me?
227 Edwards.
I have no idea.
Is the commercial on the...
Is the address of the former hotel? I don't know. Anyway. Brian.
So wait, sorry, just further just further to that. So
Okay, so the
one
reason
of
I'm
the
asking
things,
that question, I was told by the owner, building owner, the lot owner now, that's got a $100,000 assessment. Nobody in the town is going to buy it whatsoever. If it's got that kind of assessment on the vacant land.
so one of the things.
How is this levy going to get that property sold?
So one of the things that we're hoping is that if you have potential investors that are, say, looking at properties in Flin Flon, maybe they're looking at properties in Swan River, they're also looking at properties in the Paw, they're going to take into consideration that we have this special levy. So it's going to be more attractive to them to come and develop because they will pay a little bit less taxes
The
here
mayor
than
said the
say.
Flin Flon is special levy, so how's the POG going to be more attractive than Flin Flon?
So Flin Flon will be much in the same boat that we will be in once the mine closes, because they get a grant in lieu of taxes, and they're not going to be receiving that. So they're going to lose about $5 million in revenue, and they're going to be in the same boat that we're in, where they don't have the high commercial side of the taxes to help offset the residential side. So right now, we kind of have an imbalance where we need more commercial. We need to attract the commercial so that we can bring down the burden on the residential taxpayers. So our hope is that we attract more people to come and build houses here, because people don't, you can't build a new house for less than $250,000. So, but again, so you can go to the RM and build a house for $250,000 and pay $1,200 less a year, say, in taxes. So if we can be more competitive with that, and you're paying the same level of taxes whether you build in the RM or you build in the town of the Paw, people are going to want to build in the town of the Paw because we have more amenities, we have more services, and then same on the business side.
Tell me an example for commercial. Where's there going to be development?
So well, we have the Swampy Cree receiving home on Bell Avenue. Pardon me?
I thought they already are developing on it or working on it.
Right, so, but I'm just saying, like, that's an example of a commercial development that's coming up. And again, they could have picked to build on OCN, or they could have picked to build in the RM, and we're lucky that they chose to build in the town.
Well,
and
that's
I know
OCN property, isn't it?
No, it's Town of the Paw property that they are on. And
So we are gonna get taxes from that building? I was under the understanding that there wouldn't be any taxes.
Even if,
No.
even if it was converted to treaty land entitlement and it became OCN land, they would still pay like a grant in lieu of taxes, because we would be providing services.
Right,
We would be
equivalent to grant in lieu of taxes.
So it would be
the,
but it would be the equivalent of what they would pay if they were, if it, you know what I mean, their yearly taxes, they would still pay it. It just wouldn't, they wouldn't get a tax bill. We would have a service agreement with them where they would pay us so much a year. That would be the equivalency of taxes.
Tomato, tomato, it's the same amount of money, same amount of money.
So I still sort of didn't get any answer as to how you're going to develop commercial, increase development in commercial. Where?
Well, we have vacant lots.
Whereabouts is there vacant?
Well, there's property down along Gordon Avenue. There's vacant property. There used to be a new Hawaiian restaurant downtown. There is where the gateway was. There is the airport. My goodness, huge amounts of land out at the airport.
Is this assessment applied to the airport as well then?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Every
all Town of the Paw property.
Land.
But I'm sorry, but in following Jim's thought there, how does all these commercial vacant lots change after this assessment in terms of trying to get them to long term?
So it's the same as residential vacant lots. So if you're sitting on a vacant commercial lot, your taxes are going to go up, as opposed to if the lot was developed and there was a property or a business on it. It's kind of the same idea. So again, people aren't probably going to want to sit on these lots and pay more taxes. They're either going to want to develop them or offset them to somebody who wants to develop them.
So again, what's the assessment, or what's the cost to have a vacant lot? What are you paying for taxes on it?
Well, it would depend on what it was assessed at.
It's hard to say without an actual physical address to put into the system.
As an example, I said the lot where the hotel used to be, or the lot where the Hawaiian used to be. How much is it going to cost someone to sit on it?
Do you know the address? I don't know the address. I'd have to find the address and tell you the difference.
Okay, Brian, thank you.
I've got an empty lot.
Okay.
That's 42 by 99.
Yep.
So it's smaller than build.
Than a
So I'm
full-size
not
lot.
allowed to build on it without a variance or something. It's too small.
Right.
I paid $247 in taxes on it. In this here, apparently, I'll be paying an extra $527.
So you'll be paying $700 in
That's
some
right,
taxes.
on something that I'm not allowed to build on because it's too small.
So how is that?
That's not true, actually.
Brian, that's not true. That's not true. How many times
You
have we
can
said
come to
this
the
year
town
alone?
for a variance.
Go ahead.
You can come to the town and
Yeah,
get a
well, I bought it
variance.
knowing that I couldn't build on it.
But
I
you
didn't
can-
plan on building on it. I mowed the grass, I keep it looking beautiful. Now I'm gonna be penalized for it.
But you
I also
can-
own 2 pieces of land out in the forest where I keep my squirrels. That's gonna go from $45 per piece per year, which is not accessible except for a 500-foot walk through the forest, to over $600 now.
But nobody's taxes will go up by $600.
Well, according to this, I pay 47, and according to this, I'm under 25,000, so I should see an increase of $527. So let's just call it a $500 increase then. 600, 500, really, it's.
And
lots of money.
we
This
made
is
it
the
very-
land that you own, you can't build on. So how's it gonna increase
That's right.
development?
So I would have to build a road to get to it, and then I would have to get in there. So essentially, the town is gonna take my land, because I can't afford to pay the taxes on it.
And they're not gonna develop it.
Right, my other piece of land, I guess I could beg and plead, try and change their rules, but the guidelines say that I have to build a 20 square foot building on a full-size lot, and it's not. So, yeah, there are ways that I can do it, but I bought it knowing I didn't have to. So I got the assessment branch, which is a different whole idea, and they agree it's worth $7,000. That's also worth because of its size and because of the town's rules that I can't build on it. So I parked a big semi-trailer on it, it's like crap.
But you can build on it now, because you can come to the town and you can apply for a variance, and
Oh, I can
it
apply
can
for
come
variances anytime I want.
to council, so you can build on it, is,
Not according to the rules, I choose not to go outside the rules. The town rules say, guidelines, the bylaws say, I have to build a 20,000 square foot.
but you can
building
apply
on a
for a
full-size lot.
variance.
And nobody can build on a less than a full-size lot right now.
No,
And I
no,
know
you
that
can't.
our administration is working on it.
We
can
are,
change it.
we're telling you that you can, okay? That you can come and you can apply for a variance. There's a lot of half lots in town.
Yes, there is.
There's a lot of half lots in town. And so it's always been the rule, the law, the way it is, that you can't, if the house burns down or falls down or whatever, you can't rebuild on the half lot. So we're changing that. They should be able to build on a half lot. We've got a lot of half lots in our community, and they should be able to develop. The key here is that we have to make our community attractive for new residents, people who can take a lot of these jobs that are coming available, not just at the mill, but at the hospital, at UCN, within the Kelsey School Division. We have an agro center opening up south of the community. People are going to be coming here. We need to make sure there's places for them to live. Else they'll just look for jobs elsewhere.
But
Sorry,
no,
not to
that's,
hog everything, but if I could ask a question. If you want to attract the people to town, why wouldn't you just be looking for people out of Thompson and Flin-Flon? Instead of charging a levy to everybody, cost of advertising is not atrocious, and get those people to come here.
But where are they gonna live?
Yeah,
We have a less than 0% vacancy rate. Like, you can't find a house to rent. People don't want to come here and spend $250,000 or $300,000 on a house and then get an $8,000 tax bill. When again, you can go to the RM and build a beautiful house and pay way less in taxes.
So there's lots of houses for sale in the RM?
Well, there's land for sale that you could build a house.
Lots of homes for sale in the PA. How can you say people can't find a home? Look
They don't want to
around
pay the
town, you go around every
taxes.
block there's homes
But
for
they
sale.
don't want to pay the taxes, is what it comes down to. And
But you're raising those taxes.
but not a lot of them will go down.
That's gonna bring them to town?
If you look at most of the houses that are for sale, they're over $200,000.
A lot of the houses that sold this summer for 200,000 and lower, you can ask Jim. A lot of the houses this summer were sold for under 200,000.
Yes, the prices have dropped
So those-
considerably,
all those
definitely. You
houses-
could ask any one of the realtors, whether it be Remax or Royal LePage, prices have dropped.
Yeah, but that's not a trend, though. You know that, and I know that.
Well, we hope not, we hope the prices will go up.
Well, that's why we're trying to work hard to make sure that's not the trend, right? We're trying to build a stronger, better community, Jim.
Wouldn't a buyer, though, want to buy a house at a lower price? Wouldn't they be coming to buy them at a lower price? Why would they want to come and buy them at a higher price?
Well, again,
How are you attracting the buyers in the town, sir? That's the question I'm trying to get an answer to, please.
again, your question is on what?
How are you attracting buyers into town to buy homes? How?
To have more, because there's an element of potential, right? That people who, like I mentioned earlier, these people have business degrees, master's degrees. They're not looking, and I don't know how else to put this, but they're not looking for a $100,000 house. They're looking for a $250,000 to $300,000 home. We have a huge area where if we had high-end duplexes or fourplexes where the value of was about like $250,000 to $300,000 per unit, we would be able to offer those up and sell those just like that. We just got to make it more attractive for more people to come here. More people come here, more business comes here. But we need to do this as a community together, is to make our community a friendlier and more attractive and more financially stable place to come to.
But don't you think if you keep raising the taxes or the prices of the low-cost homes or those undeveloped properties, all you're gonna do essentially is end up with the town owning all those properties and all those low-priced houses?
I sure hope not.
Because people are gonna, they're moving already. I mean, they're moving, you said it
So-
yourself.
so Larry, just throw your hands here and say the hell with it? Let's-
They're
let's-
running
yeah.
to the lake, they're running to get out of town because they can't afford it.
Can't
Oh, I see it all the time. I hear it all the time.
Sure. I want people to be able to stay here, like 55-plus housing, and not move south. I don't want people moving away from this community.
Neither do I.
I want them to
Lived here my
stay.
whole life. I want to see it increase, but to me, it's not going to increase by nailing the people that can't afford the increase, but that's the reason they're living in a house that's under $200,000 is they can't afford to move into a house that's $400,000. But the guy that builds a $400,000 house, obviously, he can afford to pay the taxes that should be required on that $400,000 house, not be subsidized by the guy in the $70,000 house.
Larry, the problem is that in any other jurisdiction, a $400,000 house is probably about $4,000 a year in tax. Right? $400,000 house, what does it cost here? $400,000? I don't know, $10,000. Exactly. So why would he come here? Right? That's after-tax dollars that he's got to pay for his property taxes.
So what in the other jurisdictions make it so much cheaper? Like, what are the factors? It's strictly policing costs or whatever?
You guys are having a conversation back there.
He just says in any other jurisdiction, a $400,000 house pays, I don't know, $4,000,
Yeah.
and here it's $10,000.
Yeah.
So I just asked, what is it in other jurisdictions that makes the taxes be able to be so much cheaper?
There's only two ways to bring your taxes down. Wider base of assessment, which means more developed property, a wider pool to pull your money from. That brings everybody's taxes down. Or less cost, which means you start cutting services back.
Yeah.
That's the only two ways to bring your taxes down.
So these other places have more homes.
So they either have more assessed value out there available, or they have less. So I mean, without looking at specifics, I couldn't tell you where they fall on that. The good example we just gave was Flin Flon. Well, Flin Flon now dropped under 5,000 people. Their policing cost is now half or a third of what ours is. That's a huge change.
Why did that, you had mentioned that in your introduction, Jim, and I'm wondering why, so you said it goes to provincial in Flin Flon because it's under 5,000?
Yeah, I can answer that too.
It's a formula.
So there's a provincial-wide agreement that we have no part in. It's just agreed provincially that we're going to pay the federal government for our portion of the policing. And it's got arbitrary amounts of people by community based on the census levels for amounts contributed, percentage contributed. So at 5,000, or sorry, 0 to 5,000, the province will kick in 75%. 5,000 to 15,000, only 25%. 15,000 and above, nothing. So we're just on the cusp, and we pay 75%.
Hopefully more people move to the LGD.
Well, yeah, slice off the hunk of the town.
But then what do you do? More people able to Clearwater and the LGD and RCN, and then where do your policing costs come from then? Strictly from the province, I guess?
Yeah.
But even the other, whatever percent?
No, the other side, again, this is something that's out of our control. But and it's based on census numbers. The next census is 2021, I think. So we're not going to see anything change until then, regardless of what we do. But, if they do end up turning it to, we'd say we drop below 5,000 people, and this is, if it ever happens, but, and actually, it's the trend, because we actually went down last time, but would they provide the same level of service to less than 5,000 people? Do we have enough police now? Do you feel like we have enough police now? Would we lose something by paying less? It just adds a whole other element to this.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, yeah. So, but, I mean, if you fall within that amount of money, then that's what you need, right? So
could be, yeah.
I don't know. What's the population in the town now?
The pop is 5,380 something? 5,369.
Well, maybe we should have more people move to the RM and get under that.
That would substantially solve a lot of our problems.
The mayor did mention earlier on about the sale of the lots out of Clearwater Lake, which is a very...
Just hang on a sec, Jim, because Brian's been asking to talk for quite some time.
For me, I have a real issue that commercial and multi-dwelling homes are going to get a tax break on this. Kelsey Estates, Manitoba Housing, the Paul Rentals. the poor guy that's making, or the poor grandma that's on a fixed income is going to be subsidizing government entities, the provincial building. I just, to me, there should be a two-tiered levy. Can't do it.
I can answer that as well. No, you can't do a two-tiered levy. No, it's, we looked at it by dwelling numbers, but then it completely excludes the commercial.
Because to me, we're giving a tax break to the government. We are. And I 100% don't agree with it. I'm nuts. My taxes are going to go down because of this. But I still don't morally agree with it. I can't do it.
I guess there's limitations in what you can do within the municipal act to shift around some of the things in your tax levy. Like, it's not like we make more money off this, it's just kind of a shuffling within the same
totally get that.
But like, yeah, it's almost like one size fits all. It doesn't really fit all the time.
And unfortunately, Mr. Gibbs not here, and I don't mean to be thrown under the bus, but his company is going to be saving thousands because of this. And I have an issue with that. I really do. And I honestly don't think that, you would know, if you were looking to build another place and you were going to save yourself a couple $1,000s in tax, would that really make it or break it?
Depends on the income, on what you're trying to generate. I mean, every one of us, I look around the room here, I've lived here for 30 years. A lot of people have. I mean, do you see a growing community here? Do you see housing stock growing? Do you see new apartment buildings going up? Do you see, I drove down this weekend, my son lives over by the radio gym in the apartments there. And I rode down Cathedral back and forth several times, and I look back at when I was a kid, and that used to be one of the main areas of town, one of the nicer streets. I'm like, my God, right? You know, just drive around town and make your own decisions of where do you think the town's going in terms of the housing stock, in terms of growing. If you're a potential doctor coming out of med school, we just had a presentation at the CDC, if you're a potential doctor coming out and you're looking for a place, and you're going to make a fair bit of income, and you go, your apartment stock is, what do you got to pick from? You know, a friend of my kids is, he's a teacher from last year, and he's coming back trying to find a rental place, and all he can find is kind of lower end stuff, right? Like nothing, like stuff that's 40 years old or more. Nothing is getting built, so clearly there's a problem, you know, which has to be fixed. And the thing is, what is the solution? But there's a problem, and like there's nothing built.
I guess my question to that is would somebody build a $1 million apartment block? Because with this new levy, they're going to save a couple $100,000, or sorry, a couple $1,000.
It goes down to any time you're going to build a commercial development, which we're looking at trying to do some renovations, you're looking at what is that overall tax increase going to be and where are you going to put it onto. So if you're going to look at building a rental place, how much do we pass on what you rent for? It's a cost that you cannot control. Once it's built, your assessment, you cannot control. So it's not you can't decide to turn down the heat and save, it's there every month. It's like every month it's there. And the problem is in this town is that like even a $200,000 house, you look at it's a $4,000 tax bill in this town. A $200,000 house. How many of you in the room here think that's an expensive house? You know, go move to Morden or something like that. Like, that's not an expensive house these days. But you're asking somebody to pay $4,000+ for a $2,000 house, and that's after, or sorry, $200,000 house, and that's after tax dollars. So what do they have to make to pay that $4,000? They got to make $6,000, $500 a month, right, to your property taxes in town. That is the problem. So we have some lower end property, like I'm not sitting on this side, nor do I ever intend to, but it's like, it costs so much to run town, right, from sewer to water, and you divide it up by the number of properties. It costs, like whether it's a half lot or a full lot, it's generating garbage, you got water that has to be fixed, you got policing, it costs what it costs. Right? And that's, right?
And that's why we need to
I don't envy your jobs over there. You got to figure out how to split that cost up. And you're not a social welfare agency, you've got to run a town.
I'll get to you in a second, I promise, but this lady on the end.
Well, you know, just further to what you're saying, you know, you drive around the town and you see a lot of derelict buildings or rundown buildings, but to my mind that reflects a lack of money. People can't afford what you're asking us to afford, and forcing evictions is not going to improve the town.
Oh, I wouldn't want to see that happen, no. Val?
Yeah, I have a number of points here. To start with, that $200,000.
I need you to really speak up. You know this room more than anybody.
Yeah, I know. That $200,000 home will still see a tax increase of $21.87. There are 1,759 residential properties in the town. Of that, 1,376 will see a tax increase. Commercial properties, there are 299. Of that, 177 will see a tax increase. Now, you're not looking at the dollar amount, you're looking at the numbers. If you're looking at a municipality and what's best for the majority, you're hurting the majority. We got a problem here. There's no doubt. I wish I had a solution, but all you're doing is shifting the RCMP costs to the people with lesser assessments, who the majority of those have lesser income. Yes, you have a few properties here and there, maybe vacant lots that people are sitting on not developing, but I don't think that's the majority. I think that's the minority. I don't have a solution on how to bring more tax dollars into the pot. We have our mill, and that'll hopefully continue, but we have the resources for that mill to run. We have the forest. If you're looking at this Canada Goose plant or whatever else, we're in the north, and that's Flint's problem, that's Thompson's problem. If the mines are going down, people are leaving, you're not having that revenue come in. We are part of the north. We are part of that group that has a problem. But this scenario with taking the RCMP costs out of the general mill rate and distributing it that way, I don't think will have a benefit to hardly anyone. And I agree that the apartment blocks and stuff, they can generate income. Somebody in a single family home cannot generate income to compensate for their increased costs, which includes, if this comes through, the property taxes, plus your hydro, plus your television, everything, absolutely everything, groceries, everything. People with lesser incomes, that's your senior citizens, that's a lot of young families who have lesser income. They're the ones who live in the $200,000 and less. So those people are already struggling. Any increase, $200 maybe to somebody who's got, you know, a really good job, that sounds like not much. Somebody who's got a $15 an hour wage, that's big money. Those people are going to be seriously hurt. And those properties are 1,376 pieces of property that fit in those categories. And your vacant lands, yeah, there probably are people sitting on vacant lands that they should sell so someone can develop. But if you're looking at the south end of town, Big Nosati, et cetera, that they don't even have sewer and water running into those sections. If you're looking at along First Street, going past into those developments, and there's parcels of lands that I recall were vacant, again, they don't have any services running into them. Those people are going to end up probably letting their properties go into tax sale because it's just not worth anything. So then the municipality is going to have more properties that aren't generating any tax dollars. I don't see any win in this scenario. I see negative to too many people.
Appreciate your comments. Absolutely.
Yep. The whole idea here, as I understand it, is to create a more fair tax system. Would it not be fair? Like, I'll start off saying I support the idea of a levy. I don't support the method being used right now. Would it not be a lot fairer if you go to the levy, do it based on a dwelling rather than a building? Buildings don't pay taxes. Could anybody tell me right now what the occupants of an apartment in one of those old CFI blocks pays towards anything? I rather doubt they pay anything close to what I'm paying, for example. I don't understand that they're going to be paying $600 a year levy. But wouldn't it be a lot fairer if you're looking for fairness to charge, like say on a dwelling place, so then each family pays the same, and if you throw in all the apartment dwellers, and I can fully agree with Vi here that low-income people have a tougher time, but it strikes me that if every family, let's say, or dwelling, was included in a levy, everybody would pay somewhat less than, and it would be more fair if you're looking for fairness.
Actually, it works the other way. Again, you're trying to paint everything with the same brush. You've got all these different kinds of properties. Commercial just then gets pulled right out of the picture, right? So then now you've got an even bigger piece of pie that commercial is no longer contributing to, that everyone has to pay based on that formula.
No, it's the other.
No, I know what you're saying.
Like I'm saying, residential property.
I know, it just, what I'm saying is sometimes in these, in the municipal act, it doesn't let you pick and choose like that very well, so it's either all or none. So if we go by dwelling, you would be exempting all those commercial properties.
No.
No, I know what you're saying, I'm just saying you can't do that.
No, because right now you have different mill rates, commercial versus residential.
No, there's no different, the only difference in the mill rate is they contribute an education levy, and that's province-wide, right? That's not something that we specifically adjust. They have a different method of, so like your total value is adjusted differently. So they pay 65% of the total value versus 45% on a residential property. Again, that's a provincial-wide thing. It's in the municipal act. It's not something that we get to play around with.
Okay, then I'm wrong because I always thought that the mill rate commercial was higher than residential.
The mill rate doesn't change. They just pay a higher portion of their total value on it. And the other thing, you know, I was through this process, I talked to some of the people at the province, and the other thing they had talked about, and what we always try to compare to, is the base tax in Saskatchewan, right? So a lot of people like to say, okay, why can't we have just a flat fee instead of the flat fee plus stuff? It makes it a little more clear. People know how to budget. We don't have an option to do a flat fee in Manitoba right now. They said they were discussing it, whatever, you might see it in a few years, but right now you just can't do that. That's why it's being assessed as a special levy, because this is kind of like the one way we can shift this in here and make it plausible.
Okay, then a question. It's my understanding that one apartment block owner that has 3 buildings on one title, or one roll.
I have no idea, that may be true.
And that he would be assessed $600 for 100 and some families?
Could be true.
Don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess the other side of this is, and I know, like, I mean, I don't want to argue for anybody in favor of any particular group, is the idea is to, while it does hurt a number of people with existing homes and existing businesses that may pay a little more tax, the idea behind this is to stimulate new growth, right? So have people build new homes, new apartment buildings, and that's kind of, I think that's what you're getting at as well, is we're not seeing that growth because people are looking at it and they're going, okay, yes, it is true that they make income off their apartment buildings, but they don't want to build an apartment building because they look at the tax, they run their numbers and they go, no, I can't make this work. And so the idea behind this is, yes, one group is going to pay a little more, but it's a teeter-totter, right? So it's going to try and stimulate that other side. If business comes in, that should bring everybody down. That's the idea.
I think we have to remember.
The idea of counting on even lower taxes, though, to attract more people to buy a house. But why would they buy a house until there's some business here that generates new money?
Well, that's almost the same. That's the same coin, right? What we're saying is, you know, and you see those savings in commercial at the higher levels. Again, something you had brought up. At the low level, sure, you don't really see that savings on commercial. It may, like, it's making it a little bit less comfortable for those people to sit and hoard property that's worth nothing and not develop it. That's true. It doesn't work for everybody. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. But, you know, at the higher end, maybe we're bringing down those big entities' taxes. Maybe they'll come in. And again, income goes up, spreads it out to the community, the individuals. People are developing homes as well. Again, the idea is development at the cost of the low end. It is. And unfortunately, that's how it works, right?
If you answer that, who's going to be hurt by this?
No, I'm aware.
Think about it when you go to bed tonight, you're dreaming, who am I hurting? Not you, but I'm just saying that, totally. Dear Thompson, you've got to think of something else.
This is a fact. Nothing anybody in this room can change this. except that we all have to rally around the fact that we need to broaden our tax base. We need to grow. And there's a housing market that's available as we sit here. And that's the easiest, that is the quickest way to get. I know this sounds like chump change, but I think, Graham, we collect an extra $18,000 this year because we sold those lots. You know, and that, no development, no nothing, just $18,000. On an $11 million budget, that's not a lot of money. But there's an agreement in place on each and every one of those lots that they need to develop those lots within 24 months. And so if those lots are developed and they build a home on those lots, then that's revenue that we will have that we didn't have. That's revenue. And that's what we need. There's, like he mentioned, like Graham mentioned, there's two things we can do. We can broaden our tax base or we can eliminate services. That's it, that's all. James.
What's the amount of revenue on 1 mil in the residential segment?
On 1 mil?
Do you know that off the top of your head?
53, I think, 52, 53, something like that.
I don't know how many $1,000 on 1 mil with the residential assessment in this town.
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I'm not sure, yeah. We can find it out.
Like on $1 million or on like
On
1% of
Mil.
mil?
On 1 mil.
Tax
The mill rate's just divided by 1,000, and then you're apportioning it to whatever your proportional rate is. Like you just take that number divided by 1,000, times it to your proportional rate. So if you're commercial, that's 65% of your total value times that mill divided by 1,000, or 45 for residential.